Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Tia.
And I'm your host, Koya.
Welcome to the Wig Life podcast.
For wig lovers and wearers navigating life.
Because it's not just wigs, it's life.
Let's get into the episode.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
This is gonna be fun.
You guys. So this topic, we're going to start this off with this disclaimer right now.
Several disclaimers.
So first of all, the topic today is wigs, marketing, and cultural appropriation. And so this has been something that I know Tia has really wanted to talk about. I know, Tia, you've been attacked, by having these conversations. And I just want to put it out there. First of all, we are speaking from our experiences. I am a African-American woman, Black woman. I do not speak for every single Black woman. Tia is biracial. She does not speak for every biracial person, every Black person, or every white person. But we are going to bring our experiences to the table because there is value in that. Mm-hmm. And also, we really want to talk about it to get a better understanding.
So the goal is understanding. And I think
Yes.
going to this conversation, we need to set some ground rules. And one of
Yes.
those is to be respectful.
Yes.
We always want people to communicate with us. We always will. On our personal channels,
Yes.
on this podcast. We
Yes.
came together in this podcast to have the conversations that we felt like weren't being had in the communities of wigs, and that there was definitely a divide between women of color and people of color wearing wigs and not. Mm-hmm. We're going to use general terms.
Yes.
We may say things that need to be quote unquote cleaned up, meaning that you say something and you misspeak or in the moment. We're accepting of that.
Yes.
We're not going to take any negativity in terms of just being hateful or gross or
No.
But if you have a legitimate question, if there's something you do not understand, this is definitely not only the place, but this is the episode to ask the questions, even if it feels wrong. Because if it feels wrong and you're coming from a genuine place of curiosity, that's the only way you're going to learn what is right.
Yes.
Is to say it. And so that person can be like, yeah, that is ignorant to say because X, Y, Z. And so we want this to be a place of respect, understanding, and hopefully growth for all of us.
Yeah, I think at the very least, for me, I hope that this will spark a conversation that you will have with someone, whether it's with another woman, a woman outside your race, within your race, but just spark conversation, because I think conversations are important. I think that's how you learn, but I also think coming to it in the spirit of really wanting to learn. And even if you don't 100% agree, that's fine. Just hearing maybe something that you didn't know, maybe hopefully understanding something that you didn't understand, or making something clear. And you may not agree, and that's okay. We don't have to agree, but please
Just
be respectful.
Remain open.
Yeah, be respectful. Okay, so
let's start off. We're going to get to the cultural appropriation, things like that. There are going to be other episodes where we're going to explore these topics a little bit more.
Yeah.
I will explore, and I will put out there right now, this topic it's extremely important to me. Mm-hmm. It does create some feelings in me based on my experiences. And so we will discuss that. This is the place. I want to start with the wigs and marketing. I have done videos on this, and this is something I think is really misunderstood and needs to be discussed more. There is definitely marketing differences between wigs meant for women of color and wigs that are marketed towards women who are not of color. Mm-hmm. People always ask me, why are they more expensive? What is the difference? And so I'm going to tell the short answer to that.
Okay.
The easy answer to that, and then we can explore.
Yeah, because I got a deep answer to that.
The biggest answer to that, and I'm coming from a marketing perspective.
Yes.
The biggest answer to that is this. Partially, wigs that are marketed to women who are not of color are more expensive because the market representation in the wig industry for women who are not of color is extremely less. And I mean, it's kind of like a 90-10 situation.
Yes.
That's very unrepresentative of how the world is in general.
Yes.
But in the world of wig industry, women who aren't of color really represent the very minority people purchasing.
Yes.
So we're talking about marketing, capitalism, making money. Obviously, you're going to cater to the people who are there paying you the money, right? So that's like the sort of easy marketing answer to it.
Yes.
I think the other part of it is that up until extreme more recently, the difference in the reasons people are wearing wigs does differentiate in the market and the the finishes of the wig, the features of the wig. So things are obviously changing in the wig world, but primarily, if you were a woman not of color, you were probably not wearing a wig unless you medically had to.
Right.
And so therefore, if you medically needed to wear a wig, most often you would need finishes and features that are different than a woman who of color who wearing wigs is more a part of your culture. You have more skills, more access to things, more access to information. So things like cutting lace, melting lace, customizing wigs, dyeing them, plucking the part, that isn't something so foreign. If you are a woman not of color and you're coming to it for a medical reason, if that medical reason, say, for instance, is cancer treatment, you could have hair one day and not hair the next. There is no time to learn. There is no learning curve. And so wigs, again, in general, that are marketed towards women who are not of color, have finishes and features that are more sort of ready to wear. First of all, there's no lace cutting. They're already usually thin, densitied, and they have features that are going to be comfortable for someone who potentially has a sensitive scalp, who may not have hair at all. So there's not going to be a lot of need for blending because you probably don't have hair to blend in the context of it being for a medical reason.
Yes.
Finishes like, so hand-tied features where it's going to be hand-tied movement, extended napes with velvet finishes, double monofilament. So double monofilament in the name brand world can be known as the silk tops because, again, that's going to be against their scalp.
Right.
Those are all additional features and finishes. And so they cost more.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. And then the last part of it is just there's actually, in terms of not like name brand wig, like medical wig, there's only like a few factories. Like people think that there's this abundance, and for wig companies that are made more for the affordable beauty supply store, there is much more in that. There's things in China, and there's just much more.
Yes.
Right. But there is only, even your biggest name brand wigs that you like, they're all pretty much coming from maybe 3 factories, and that's it. Like there isn't, the market is up because there isn't a ton of availability and competition. It's just like any, other thing.
Yeah. Supply and demand.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the basic, like, should it be like that? We can disagree. We can talk about that later. But in general,
yes.
Why is the marketing different? Why is the price different? That's why. Because you have 2 very different groups of people. Some people who are more knowledgeable, understanding, or have access to knowledge and can customize wigs. So they're not going to pay extra for finishes and features because they're going to do it on their own.
Right.
But then you have this group over here. It's just like anything. You want meal plans. You want HelloFresh. You want it just to come to your door already. You pay a premium for things being convenienced.
Yes.
So that's what I have to say on that. You can go.
I knew we were going to talk about this. And I'll be honest, because I am a Black woman and wigs and hair, is a big part of our identity, our community, is very true. And so I started thinking about why. Why is that? I know we've, talked about in other episodes when I mentioned a beauty supply to my friend who is Caucasian, she was like, Sally's. And I'm like, no. Well, I told her, yeah, but in my mind, I wasn't thinking Sally's. I was thinking of literally beauty supplies, a place called Beauty Supply. And if you are an African-American woman or a Black woman, you know what I'm talking about when I say beauty supply. And you may even if you aren't, you may live in neighborhoods or you may know about beauty supplies. And so I really thought about it. And for me, what I really think why we are so, and when I say we, I'm talking in general of about, well, I'm talking specifically about Black women. I think the reason why it is so marketed to us is because our hair historically, and I don't, not even just historically, but I would even argue today, is not looked at as desirable.
I agree.
It is looked at as, and I'm just going to say it, you guys, because this is why we wanted to have these. It's looked at as nappy. It's looked at as ugly. It's looked at as not acceptable.
Unruly.
Yeah. And even like you could be fired for wearing your hair in a natural state. If somebody felt like it's not professional or they don't like it, you could be fired. There's literally, and you can
Still
Google
to this day.
Yes, the Crown Act just started in 2019. Thank God. I'm proud to say California was one of the first. If it is, it's definitely one of the first. I don't know if it's the only one because I'm not following it as closely anymore, but I need to get back on it. But it was one of the first states to say you cannot fire someone for having their hair. So I think in a natural state.
In a natural state.
So, and you hear about athletes all the time. Was the guy who was like those nappy headed hoes for the, the basketball team. So I think the reason why hair is marketed to us so much and sold to us is because you are told by the powers that be, by even maybe your own family members, that your hair is not good. It's not acceptable. So we are looking for ways to assimilate. We are looking for ways to make it more convenient to fit, the standard of beauty. Because in this country, in America, and I would even argue a lot of countries that are westernized or have been colonized, a Eurocentric look is the standard of beauty.
I agree.
And we don't have that.
It's whether it's conscious or subconscious.
Yes.
The market is saturated in such a way.
Yes.
And
100%.
Again, like getting really deep in an oppressive way. It's
100%.
marketed like this beauty and like, wow, you can go to any beauty supply and you can change anything about yourself, and it sounds great.
Yes.
It's kind of like when you go on Instagram and you see things like, what's the big thing right now is that buccal fat removal.
Oh.
So that where you're taking the fat out of your face to thin it out and giving sort of that sickly look. Yeah. You haven't seen that?
No.
So, the Kardashians, how they have this sunken... Okay, they've actually had the fat removed out of their...
No, ma'am.
Maybe not them, but who's the girl... Who's the girl from Glee?
Leah?
I want to say
somebody?
Leah something. I want to say Leah Renna, but it's not Leah Renna.
Yeah, she's
Renna.
Leah somebody, though.
She
I know
had buccal fat removed. So she had this. And the thing about it is, like, once it's gone, you cannot replace it. So then it gets that hollowed. But the point is that is marketed like that is the beauty. And so people are over here altering themselves. It is not any different than how, hair is marketed to you, where you're almost convinced that, oh, yeah, that actually is beauty. Not that it's not. We're not saying you can't do it. If you like it, we love it. If you love it, we like it. But the point is that thinking about the reason why it's so heavily marketed.
Yes. And I think too it goes a little deeper too, because this has been going on. I'm 45. This has been going on in my lifetime, grandma lifetime. I think I would still argue to a certain extent. Well, I'm not even... It is still going on right now today. I think a part of... So the natural hair movement, for those of you guys who don't really know or understand what that is, it was basically Black women deciding we're not going to put relaxers, which would be like a straightener.
Which is a chemical.
It is very toxic. It can burn your scalp. It does burn your scalp. You can get burned from it. It also, there's a big lawsuit right now of people suing these companies who made these companies because it's so toxic. And so just going to like extreme lengths, I really want people who are not Black or to understand the extreme lengths that Black women will go through or do or did to change their hair, to be able to be accepted or, looked at as decent or looked at, as a standard of beauty. And I think it started with, just you're not being the standard of beauty. And then I think over the years, because I was having a conversation with my god sister and my sister about this, and we were talking about it, and I was like, you guys, like, just, we were saying like how even within our own culture, with even amongst Black people, we will tell each other, girl, your hair, like, no, your hair is nappy, it's ugly, like, you need to do something with your hair. Your grandma or your aunt might tell you, come in here and let me do something with your hair. But and we start getting into, but where does that come from? Like, who started that? Who said? And I think one of the most powerful things about the time we're living in now versus the time when my generation and generations before me were coming up is there were gatekeepers, and there was people in media and the status quo who decided what was beauty and what was beautiful. And I still think that power dynamic exists.
Like that.
But I also think social media has kind of taken away the gatekeeping. And people can choose and embrace. So you can see now more. I'm not saying it's just enough and that's not still an issue, because it is. But I think now you can see more of people and things that look like you, and still feel good and still feel beautiful, as opposed to having to be, quote unquote, a certain standard, look a certain way, be a certain way.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, because we're a similar age.
Yeah.
I feel like then getting even deeper into this.
Yeah.
I'm biracial.
Yeah.
I was raised by my white mother, my white family. I did not even meet my biological dad until I was 16. I've only seen him twice.
Yeah.
I was just that was not a part of how I grew up.
Yes.
And we are going to have a whole conversation about being biracial, but I would say, in terms of like what you're talking about, these, standards and marketing and the cultural appropriation, you get in a hairy place when someone is biracial, because I always felt, so now my hair isn't coarse, but it's very curly. But I was raised by my mom, who had very bone thin, straight hair.
Yes.
And because I didn't have any experience, there wasn't a beauty supply store. I mean, I went to a school where there's 5 minorities and 4 of us were biracial. So I didn't even know. I used the products my mom used. I did what she did.
Right.
And I mean, my hair was a dang hot mess for a long time.
Yes.
Because I just had no clue, and neither did my mom.
Yeah.
I did a lot of braiding, a lot of real tight ponytails. My mom, oh my gosh. My mom would braid my hair, and she would I remember this, she would hold my chin to comb my hair back.
Oh my God.
Dry. She would hold my curly hair back dry. And she had this brush, and if, ladies, you may know this. It was an Avon brush. It was pink. Okay, and it was a very popular Avon brush. It was pink, but it was made from this very hard, like, acrylic plastic. And she would hold my hand.
Oh,
she'd be like
my
this,
God,
and I'd pull her hand down, because I'm like, quit
hurting.
doing that. And she would smack me with that brush, and it hurt. I'll never. But I remember her, because she had no clue how to do my hair. She wouldn't just let me have my curly hair.
Yeah.
She would have to braid it, or in her mind.
Yeah.
Because now that you're saying this is really bringing something to focus that I really didn't think about before.
Yeah.
Like, I had talked about my grandmother before. My grandmother used to be like, leave that child alone. She used to tell my mom to quit. Just let her, she's like, she's got beautiful curls. Just let her hair be curly. Just let it alone. And my mom would always want to braid it or put it in a ponytail and get it under control. And I never put that together until now, because I stuck out even more.
Yeah.
You know, in that scenario.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny?
Yeah, because we are told that. Like,
my son just went through a hard time.
We are told that.
So my son's father is white, and I'm biracial. So he's blonde hair and blue eyes, but he does have curly hair. He went through a hard time, so he was just, he went through his first breakup. So he wasn't, first of all, he didn't care to comb his hair or cut it or whatever.
Yeah.
So it got big and poofy. To be honest with you, half the kids in his school, this whole let's have a mullet, let's... let's have
right now the
poofy-
untamed look is in.
Right. So that's not abnormal.
Right.
But my mom, this is really coming to focus for me.
Yeah.
Literally in this moment.
Yeah.
She said, "Hey, is Avery not getting a haircut because he's growing his hair out, or he doesn't want to, or is he just because he's sad and or whatever?" So she gave me money to give him a haircut, which I thought was sweet. Which was sweet. It was sweet. Mom, I love you. It was sweet. But I think it was because it was so like curly and poofy and unruly.
Yeah.
Like to her, that was
it's
wrong.
Like my own grandma, and this, they're black women. They are not biracial. They are fully black women. And I'm sure if you're a black woman listening to this, we have been told, you going outside with your hair look like that? You need to comb your hair. It's unacceptable. You look like cornrows, or I know some people call them, we call them cornrows. Some people call them flatbacks. There's a ton of, but basically it's when your hair is braided down to your scalp and braided back. When I was coming up, my generation, I think, kind of made it a little bit more popular. But like my grandma's generation, you didn't go out of the house with your hair like that. That was ugly, and that was unacceptable. You put your hair like that in the house. If you went outside, you put a scarf over that. You put a hat over that. You didn't wear, that wasn't a style. That didn't look good. And I believe it comes from, they lived in a generation where they were told that.
Yeah, like braiding and things like that.
That is not attractive. That is ugly. And them internalizing that and not wanting the best for their children in the next generation, kind of not even realizing it, just slowly but surely passing that same thing down.
Well, I think, and that whole this is a cliche, but they say like Becky with the good hair.
Yes.
I remember when I went to college.
Yes.
That was my real first experience being around people of color. And I was excited because there's a whole half of me I didn't know.
Yes.
So I was thinking yay, I'm going to learn stuff and experience stuff. I was very, very rebuffed. I was not, and I was called Miss I kept being called Miss Thang, Miss Thang. You think you're so good. Look at your hair. It's funny because to me, my hair was ridiculous. It was unruly. It was not acceptable because nobody had hair. I didn't see anybody
who had hair like yours.
And I mean, not even on TV. And not saying that there was a lot of representation, but you had black actors and actresses.
Sure.
There were very few that were biracial, and the ones hit it. Even to this day, there are some people where if you Google actors and actresses you didn't know were biracial, they hit it because as a biracial person, like it or not, people want you to pick.
Yeah.
They need you to be on one side. And they need you to be on the side they think you belong on, too.
Right.
So, to me, I'm kind of good hair? What are you talking about? Because first
that
of all,
is a thing
I'm over
in our
here
community.
Using Pantene. Pantene for thin hair. And I'm using that. So, my hair was insane. To me, I was like, this is good hair? I'm like, this is because simply because I just didn't know what to do.
Absolutely.
I mean, I had pretty hair.
Yes.
I didn't know it until I was almost 30.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know anything about doing my hair.
Right.
And then when I went to college, they were like, oh, you're Miss Thing with the good hair.
Right.
And you're this. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, because there is
isn't
privilege.
That perspective? I was like, what are you talking about? Who has good hair?
Because
I've been made fun of my whole life for it.
good hair and bad hair is a serious thing in Black culture. And basically, I hate that term because I have been told I have good hair too, and I despise that term. But basically, for those who may not know what it means, it is speaking to the texture of your hair. The straighter your hair, the closer your hair is to being like a white standard of beauty. The longer it is, the straighter it is, the less tangled or kinky it is. That is what is good hair. Bad hair.
The closer you are to passing.
Yes. That is what good hair is. If your hair is short, if it's an afro, if it's tangly, if it's quote unquote, I'm going to say nappy, braided down, that is bad hair. Mm-hmm. And you are treated a certain way when you have good and bad hair.
Well, and then even deeper than that, when you're talking about colorism and thing.
Yes.
If you've read any if you've read or experienced, but if you've read anything from like Alex Haley, his book Queen, the whole brown paper bag term, that's a real thing, and it still happens.
Yes.
And essentially they were basically like, if you were lighter than a brown paper bag, you could pass.
Yes.
And that was where you wanted to be. So you want to be closest to that lighter, or the same as or lighter than a brown paper bag, and your hair would be good hair if it was soft and could be put in the styles of the day.
Yes.
Because there's certain styles, and I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Like, because there was a woman that was on my channel who is, she's Jewish. Mm-hmm. And if you are some Jewish, and I'm only speaking from what she explained to me.
Yeah.
But I know that there are some Jewish people, Orthodox, not even just Orthodox, but some Jewish women, they still do this tradition where once they get married, they don't show their hair. Mm-hmm. Other than to their husband.
Yes.
So they wear hats or scarves, or they wear, and they're usually human hair, but they wear wigs. And she was saying she had a very hard time finding, even from Jewish sellers, wigs for her, because she's like, I have natural curly hair, which a lot of Jewish women do.
Yes.
And she's like, but the wigs are always the straight fine. So even in a culture that embraces that, it's part of your culture to wear a wig.
Yes.
For that reason, it's still not provided to even wear a wig of your natural hair.
Yeah.
That's natural to your culture, to your ethnicity. And it's just so crazy that we've allowed societies to dictate what beauty is.
Absolutely, 100%.
Even if it's against nature.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, 100%. And, like you spoke on colorism a little bit, and people are treated a certain way because of their hair. Like we were just talking about, people can get literally fired. I know my job recently went ahead and was like, it's okay to wear braids to work, and it's okay to wear dreadlocks or locks, to work, where that was looked at as not professional. So I really want people to understand in the Black community how deep rooted our hair is.
Which is so crazy to me, because I got micro braids once.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm telling you, the level of talent of braiders is next level.
Yes.
Second of all, it hurts. I did not know that.
Yes.
Third of all, to me, it's so pretty and sleek. To me, it's more put together than some other style. And that's why it's like, you look at it and you're like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not professional. To me, it's more professional.
Yeah. But you have to think, when you are told.
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying, it's like, who's
For
telling people?
years,
Who gets to tell people?
For years, this has been, passed down, by establishments, and by bureaucracy and systems, that this is not acceptable. And it's funny, because when I wear my hair natural, when I wear it in its curly state, most of the time, the people who compliment me the most are not Black people, it's white people. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting to me.
People,
now don't get me wrong.
Like,
I'm not saying that Black people, because I have definitely had Black people, but by far, more white people will tell me how beautiful my hair is when I wear my hair to work in its natural state. Hands down, more white people think it is beautiful than Black people. And I think it is because it is a deep-seated thing within us that has been passed down, that it's not acceptable. And I think that slowly but surely strides are being made to make it more acceptable. I mean, even Michelle Obama just was saying she never wore her hair natural or in braids during the office, because she knew people aren't going to be ready for that. Mm-hmm. People are not going to accept. Yeah, people aren't going to accept that. I don't know. You think now they would?
Maybe not the braids, but I think the natural. I think if it was braids done in a certain way that looks sort of like coiffed or, haute couture, again, that maybe not.
Yeah.
But that opens up the conversation. Yeah. Sorry, I was about to give too many flowers in that minute.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think it's sad, and I think we still have a long way to go. But hopefully, conversations like this, that's why it's important so people can think about and see things just another way.
So how does that fall into cultural appropriation?
Yeah.
I think cultural appropriation is a very fluid term.
Very
I think
nuanced.
It's very nuanced. I think it means different things depending on the topic. I don't think there is like, this is cultural appropriation for everything.
Yes.
I do feel like cultural appropriation, there's a level of intent.
Yes.
And gain that has to be involved.
Yes.
But the reason we bring this up is because, like, you know, on my channel, I feature both affordable beauty supply store wigs and name brand wigs, both of which are heavily marketed in their materials to two separate cultures, right? However, they can be worn by either.
Right.
But if you don't see a person that looks like you advertising the thing for you, it can be hard to see yourself in that. So I have people who are women who are not of color who are like, oh, I want to wear the Bobbi Boss wig. I want to wear something from Janet Collection. And they think that that's cultural appropriation if they do that. And so I want to really clear up what we're talking about and when it could potentially be that and when it really, really isn't.
Okay, so so now when it comes to texture, right? We all know that certain textures are naturally come with certain ethnicities, right? We know that a more kinkier or coily texture of hair primarily comes from Black people, African Americans, Africans. We understand that.
But I do have to disagree with that. I think that's where we need to start really understanding. Maybe the kinky coily, but in terms of being, not even, because I mean, you have a lot of Hispanic people have natural curly hair.
Yeah.
A lot of Jewish people have natural curly
hair.
But
I think there's a difference between curly and kinky.
I mean, yes and no. Because
I really do. But I'm listening to you.
We're going to take human hair wigs off the table. We're going to only talk about synthetic, okay? So these are fibers.
Yeah.
My thing is that, how do I say this? I do think that there are other cultures that have that naturally, that can have that as naturally part of, not 100%, but I do think that anytime you see like a wig that is very, very curly and it's marketed to women of color, there are women who are not of color that have very, very curly hair. So again, if you're trying to buy a wig to emulate your natural hair, right? And you have natural curly hair, on the name brand wig side, which is heavily marketed towards women of color, there's actually very few curly wigs in general, or women not of color. Like, I can go through the catalog, and I'm telling you, it's seen as trendy. So like right now, they're like, oh, all these curly wigs are coming out because it's on trend. Okay, but like your natural, like if you have natural curly hair, it's not about trend. You have it your whole life. Your mom has it. Your aunt has it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is maybe we can expand our own mind in the fact that those textures, because I have, you know, my cousin has natural curly hair. She's full white, and hers is actually more textured than mine. Mine is a lot softer than hers. Hers is a lot tighter and a lot coarser. So I'm just saying, as we're trying to break this idea, also consider that there can be ideas that are limiting on both sides.
Sure. But I would still, I'm still going to argue the point. And I get what you're saying, but I still think there is, you can have coarse hair, you can have short hair, long hair, you can have wavy hair. I think there is a difference just within curls. And I will still say that the tighter that curl is, that naturally, I will still say lies more with us. And when I say us, I'm saying Black. So I'm not saying that somebody should not wear that. That is not what I'm saying. Anybody can wear, the curl is loose or as tight as they want.
But we're talking about cultural appropriation.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. So, but if you have on, like, if you go buy an Afro wig and you are a certain ethnicity, I know your hair is not naturally going to look like that.
Okay, argument. Just an argument.
Yeah.
2 points to that.
Yeah.
Totally don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
But this is the truth of it.
Yeah.
from someone who's being biracial,
Mm-hmm.
this is where I usually get off in the dish with people.
Okay.
Because I have friends that are lighter than me who have kinky curly hair.
Mm-hmm.
People see them as white. So they are wearing, do you see what I'm saying? So it's not, I caution people on all sides to not visually look at somebody and be like, oh, they're cultural appropriation.
Well, I don't think that's appropriation, but go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It would be if I was actually white and I was wearing a wig that was made of a texture that was not it would be. It could be seen as, again, because it's nuanced. It could be seen as, okay, Rachel Dolezal.
Yes.
People say she culturally appropriated.
Yes.
That's a whole conversation.
That's a whole conversation.
She is obviously white.
Yes.
She wears her hair very kinky curly.
Yes.
Sometimes wears wig, right?
Yes.
So in that scenario, you could make a valid argument that that's cultural appropriation.
Yes.
Her son is biracial, looks exactly like her.
Yes.
But it's not cultural appropriation for him because he's biracial.
Yes.
But how would you walking down the street know that? Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm like, that's why I want to caution us to be like, that's cultural appropriation when we don't even necessarily, sometimes we don't know that could be actually part of their blood. That could be part of who they are. Because visually, you and I have talked that you see me as a biracial woman. You know that there's something in me. Yeah. There are a lot of people that see me as someone white pretending to be black.
Yeah. Yes.
And have accused me of cultural appropriating.
Yes.
Like, I get concerned sometimes when I have reviewed braided wigs.
Yeah.
I have been told, because that's what they see, that I'm a white person. That's what I'm saying is to expand that, and maybe that's even deeper. What does it mean to be a person of color? Because I don't feel like if you are biracial, you are not included. I am not included. Yeah. I will 100% die on the hill that for a lot of people, not you, you're different, you are lovely.
Oh, you're sweet.
I'm being honest. But there's a lot of black women who do not see me and would not include me as a woman of color, period, because I'm biracial and I'm on the lighter side. Yeah. And that I'm not included and I shouldn't be.
Okay.
Just ask.
No. I'm just trying to formulate my thoughts here because this is heavy, right? And I want to make sure that I'm being clear with what I'm saying and what I'm thinking. So.
And by the way, people, we're not fighting.
No, not at all. Oh, no,
I don't want people, especially if they're just listening, to think this. But these are the heavy. These are the real. This is a heavy thing. This is the real thing.
Okay. So back to. Let me go back to the Afro thing. Okay. So, I know you have a different feeling about it, but I'm just gonna use this to hopefully make my point. Right. So I'm gonna attribute Afros to black people, okay, in our natural hair, right? Afro. So then you get this, I don't know, white woman, Japanese woman, whatever, who's not black, puts this Afro wig on. At the end of the day, I don't think it is so much about the style. I think it's about what it represents. Because like we have just been saying, we are told that is not the standard of beauty. This is not what is acceptable. This is not what is good. And then you have somebody come and put this on and wear this, even though they might feel like it's beautiful and they might get praised for it. We are shunned for it. So it's a very deep and insulting thing because it is something that you are told is not desirable, but that is what you naturally are. And you go to great lengths to try to fix it, deal with it, whatever you may be, and then somebody else. So I'll use the example, a better example is probably Kim Kardashian, right? Remember she had the Fulani braids. And for those of you guys who don't know what Fulani braids are, they're basically, like I was talking about earlier, kind of like cornrows. It's your hair braided back, very, very fine, in a certain style. And so, what's her name? The famous actress. She wore Fulani braids in a movie in the 70s. Oh my God, I had looked this up. Bo Derek. Mm-hmm. She wore Fulani braids. And Kim Kardashian also wore the Fulani braids. And this was a couple years ago on Instagram. And she posted Bo Derek. And people like ripped her a new one. And the reason why they did is because Bo Derek did not originate, nor does she come from Africa. Those braids are African braids. They're Fulani braids, and they represent things. And so it's not that Bo Derek can't wear it, but Bo Derek was praised and told she was beautiful for wearing it. And when we wear it, we're not. So what is that saying? Why is it pretty for Bo Derek, and that's not her natural hair, that's not her natural state, but when I wear it or somebody else wears it, it's ugly, it's not acceptable, I can be fired for it. You understand what I'm saying? So we're taking the same thing, and when we attribute it to one person, it's beautiful. When we attribute it to somebody else, it's ugly. So that is, I think, at least for me and for the people that I know, what is so hurtful and insulting is things that are naturally for us, that are natural to us. We're not told we're beautiful for it, are nice for it, but if somebody else does it and they get all this praise for it, it's very hurtful and insulting.
And I hear you, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But I do think because in general, a lot of the hurt and pain comes from these boxing in. This is right, this is wrong.
Sure.
For everybody.
Sure.
But I don't think in general, and this is everybody, we are always very well versed on other cultures, countries, other, Americans, unfortunately, are very well renowned for world travel and not understanding the culture or the customs or whatever that they're doing, right?
Yes.
I also feel like until these recent years, there was definitely sort of that fourth wall. There was this whole not understanding the behind the scenes and the context of things.
Sure.
So, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure with the Bo Derek and the 10 thing, I think Kim's reference, Kim tends to be off on a lot of things, but there was a reason Bo's hair was braided in that movie, which was not shared with the public. It was partially due because Bo Derek actually has natural curly hair, and they were on location in a tropical place. And so they did it because it was going to make it easier than having to deal with her hair being, because when you have natural curly hair, it could be cute 1 second, cute.
Yeah.
It was long days filming. I'm pretty positive that I had read that it was initially done as a work around her hair.
Sure.
And then, because she's Bo Derek and she's beautiful and she's coming up out of the water, then it becomes this whole illusion and this vision. And that's where you're grabbing into this cultural appropriation. Because they weren't saying, well, we had to braid her hair down because we just filmed for 50 hours and it's 1,000 degrees out and her hair would be ridiculous, right? They didn't say that.
Right.
They leaned into the response. So for me, cultural appropriation is when you're starting to gain something based on something that you're saying is not beautiful in this culture, but now I'm going to gain something out of it on my culture. That's where it turns into appropriation for me.
Well, I would argue that it would be appropriation, though, for Bo Derek, because that's famous. Like, I've never even seen this movie. I don't even know if I was born when this movie came out.
I think you have to understand, okay, the context of the movie in general, of women being seen in that way, strong character. There's a whole other context to that. So I think if you understood why it was so famous, it at the time was not about the braids.
Sure.
And that's why I'm saying it becomes a I'm not saying it wasn't cultural appropriation with Bo Derek. What I'm saying was it wasn't intended that way. But because they gained something out of it, then you lean into it, right?
Yeah.
If they would have just said practically her hair could not withstand, like we needed to do this beautiful scene where she was coming out of the water probably 50 times that day. And we couldn't have her hair all over the place. So somebody braided it down. I think initially they were going to put a wig over it. And they didn't. So what I'm saying is that context was not shared. So in the regular public, I wish people would say that more is what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Then there wouldn't be cultural appropriation.
I don't agree with that, though. But I'm listening to you.
if she was just praised because she's a beautiful woman coming up out of the, like, come on, that's really what it was about.
So if a black woman did that same scene and did that same thing, would she be looked at as beautiful? Would she be praised and this would be a beautiful thing? That's the point I'm making.
Again, we can't assign context to a different time period. At that time, probably not, because that's not how black
I don't even
women,
think it would be. I don't know if it would be now.
I mean, come on,
or
look
not.
at like some Halle
But-
Berry, some,
Yeah, but I've never seen her wear braids in a movie.
yeah. She
What
has.
movie did she have braids on?
I will show you some pictures because I love her.
Yeah.
And she's biracial, and she's the only one that for a long time that I could look up to. I guess we're getting in the mud about what I'm saying is it's a difference between context and intention.
Sure.
So if the context was we had to braid her hair down, again, she has natural curly hair. So
Sure.
we had to braid her hair down based on this movie. Nobody ever said anything like
Sure.
this.
Sure. No, I get.
I'm saying that once the intention was, oh, we can run with this, we can make money from this, that's when it becomes cultural appropriation. Instead of saying we braided her hair down for utility, you're giving that illusion that it's something that it's not. And so that's where I think it's cultural appropriation. With the Kardashians, the thing that really bothers me, and I think being biracial, this bothers me even, this is really nuanced as well. They're from the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
Like their dad is Middle Eastern.
Yes.
So for them, for certain things to be done
Mm-hmm.
would be okay. But they almost shun that part of themselves
Mm-hmm.
and embrace this sort of super westernized like
Yes,
look
that Eurocentric beauty standard we were talking about.
until it works for them.
Sure.
They want to, you know what I'm saying? When
Absolutely.
it works for them, gets them money, then they're like, oh yeah. So
Yes.
it's like, you either are or you aren't. And if you are, and sometimes you can, it works for you, great. But like, don't change yourself. Like, don't be fluid. And I think that does give some people who are biracial a little bit of a bad time. Because for me, I just am who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I know other people want to assign things to me, and I hate that. Don't put me in a box.
Sure.
But I also don't think it's also, say for instance, like I've had friends who are biracial who really see themselves as black women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I respect that because that's how they see themselves.
Sure.
I would side eye it if like down the road then they'll identify like as a white woman exclusively, because then I'd be like kind of like, whoa.
What happened?
Which they could. It's
Yeah.
both sides of them.
Right.
But I would want to have that conversation like, why are you jumping? Like what? I don't know. It's a very difficult
Yeah.
conversation. But I think with the Kim Kardashian thing,
Mm-hmm.
I think Bo Derek, I would throw that out the door. I'm not really concerned with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think her doing it, she was doing it because that is something that she was popularizing from another culture. Like she that was intentional.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things are intentional.
Mm-hmm.
That's what bothers me.
Yes.
I feel like
too.
there was a similar
Me too.
thing, like the backlash with Adele. When she, so Adele is from, let me look.
You're talking about the singer.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Adele dressed up and
Oh, when she was Jamaican? When she tried
Because
to dress like she was like
I
Jamaican
think
or something?
she is from, she was from there, or her family is from there. And she was doing it for like a, let me get, I don't want to be wrong about this.
Okay, while you're looking that up, I want to say this. And I'll speak to this because I feel like if I don't say this, it's going to bother me, and it probably will bother people listening. I still think that a lot of cultural appropriation, at least as a black woman, when people wear things or do things and it is popularized or it is looked at as beautiful, when it is something that we do normally, whether the intention was to appropriate or not, at that point, to me, it doesn't matter, because a lot of people do things with the intention of not meaning to hurt someone, but they still hurt them. So I think that the whole Kim Kardashian thing, the whole Bo Derek thing, that is very hurtful to black women, because this is something that we do, that we wear, that we are shunned for. So there is a lot of hurt And there's a lot of pain that comes from that, whether the intention was to be mean or to have better hair or do the scene or whatnot. I 100% understand that. But I also just want to make it clear that that still doesn't change the fact that it hurts, that it's ugly on you and pretty on somebody else. That you're told that you could lose your job, that you can, all kinds of things if you are to do that same thing. I think that is a lot of where, at least for Black women, where that's coming from, where that intent is. And so me saying that is just to give someone who is listening who may not be Black, just a little bit of more of an understanding of what that does to you mentally, how that makes you feel. Whether the person, because a lot of times when people are accused of cultural appropriation, a lot of times that is not the intention. That is not what they meant to do. But just because that is not what your intention is and that's not what you meant doesn't take the hurt away, doesn't take the sting away, doesn't take away the fact that if I was to do that, I'm not going to receive that. I'm not going to get that.
So, and this is a legitimate question.
Sure.
But then that's basically saying that there's certain things that are just off limits forever because of their history, right? And so what you're saying is it's kind of not everything you're saying is valid and it is true, and it's just whether you believe that about the country or not, unless you're in a seat to believe it, sometimes we just don't believe it because we don't have to.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I'm not saying that, but what I'm trying to say is let's say braids, for instance.
Yes.
Or anything.
Yes.
If someone's doing something and it's hard to say you should embrace and be yourself and lean into things, and we're not the term cultural appropriation is a very intense term. It's a very, like we said, a nuanced term. Mm-hmm. There is intention behind that. There has to be some type of gain. And I understand what you're saying is because traditionally if you were to do that or a woman of color were to do that, you would not be seen as beautiful and that pain and to respect that pain.
Yes.
I would like to open that conversation up though, that there's a lot of, when you're talking about colorism, that's within... And I mean, that's within the cultures, right? So not only is it outside, but
it's within. Absolutely.
We don't acknowledge that actually happens within the culture as well.
100%.
And that's so, I have a friend who is Afro-Latina. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Black people that don't even acknowledge that's a real thing, which it is.
That's ignorant. My great-grandfather's Afro-Latina.
I mean, there's a lot of backlash.
He spoke Spanish. He even speak English.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. I just feel like I wish we could kind of open up a little bit in terms of yes, getting that pigeonholing and standards of beauty from outside of the culture. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I want to talk more about what we do within the culture, and especially when you're talking about. I guess I'm more sensitive because I'm biracial, and I'm really not allowed to be in either camp. And when I say allowed, it's just that, like I'm saying, when I have reviewed wigs with braids, when I have worn braids, I have been attacked for that.
Right.
Yet when I have the straight or the good hair, I'm attacked for that.
Right.
So I want, so in that scenario, what you're saying is well, you shouldn't be able to wear it because...
No.
I'm we can clean it up.
Yeah.
But I can only say it the way I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Again, and you're different. Mm-hmm. But so, then who's allowed? I guess what I was saying. So, I have a Black father, and he's very, is it, or my son. My son is blonde hair and blue eyed, but he has very curly hair. Yes. So is he not allowed to wear those styles, even though his hair is kinkier than mine? I mean, it's not kinkier. It's more coarse and textured than my hair. I think that's where I want to be careful that we don't get in such a ditch that we're telling certain people this is who you are, this is what you're allowed to do, because that's essentially what's happened to Black cultures is telling them who they are, what they can and cannot do.
Right. So let me just be clear, because that's not what I meant to, if I said that, that is not what I meant to say, and that is not what I'm meaning. I believe you can wear whatever hairstyle you want, because I wear whatever I want, and I wear a lot of straight blonde wigs, and I've had black people tell me, you don't love yourself because you don't have straight hair and you don't have blonde hair. And I wear straight blonde hair because it looks good on me.
Yeah, but
period.
A lot of people wear
point blank, and that's what I like.
And they don't have natural green hair.
Yeah,
either.
But so I really want people to understand. I'm not saying wearing a certain style is necessarily a cultural appropriation. What I'm saying is why it is hurtful. That is what I want people to understand, because I don't think people understand, because I've had people say it's just a hairstyle. Why does it mean so much to you? Why is it such a big deal? I want people to understand the emotion behind it. That is what I'm really trying to get across. It's not so much about the style. It is about, when I do it, I am ugly, I am shunned, I can lose my job for that. And when you do it, you are praised, you are beautiful, this is a legendary movie, this is a style, now people are getting these braids and they're calling it Bo Derek. That is what I'm speaking to. Is that clear? Mm-hmm. That is what I'm speaking to. You can wear whatever you want to wear. Now, I'm speaking for me personally. I don't, unless you do something that I can see with my own eyes, see the intention behind, what you're doing, then that's one thing. But just because you have a certain style, no, I'm not going to judge you or shun you from wearing styles. But I do want people to understand why women, black women especially, of color, get upset about these things, what that emotion is coming from. And the emotion that is coming from, because it's something that's deep rooted within our own community and with outside the community, is because we have been told that this is ugly, that this is not okay. This is not okay. And people have went through extreme lengths to not have that. And then when you see somebody else do something that is natural, that is where the anger, I think, is more coming from. But of course, people are not going to probably take the time. I don't know, because I don't read, I don't get too involved with this kind of stuff on social media. But I don't know if people are taking the time to really make that clear. So I just want to, with my platform, really make that clear, is the people who are getting upset and people are saying, well, it's just a hairstyle. For that, and that's the incident that I could just really think of clearly, is what that raw emotion is coming from, because it means something deeper than just a style. Because I think hairstyles at the end of the day are just hairstyles. That's why I don't feel like it's that big of a thing. So at the end of the day, it's just hairstyles. But there are certain hairstyles that are in the black community that are shunned, looked down on. Like I said, I've said it a billion times now, lose job for it. And when you see other people do it and get praised for it, it's very hurtful and insulting. I don't have any other way to put it. It's very hurting and insulting, but I don't want to spend the whole episode talking about that. But yeah.
I just, on this side of things,
yeah,
I still
sure
have my point of view of,
and you 100% can.
Just be careful that in that hurt and insult, that can be passed on to other people. And
absolutely.
That, again, not to beat a dead horse.
Yeah.
But I think that within the black community and cultures, there's just as much, sometimes if not more, putting people in, I think we need to be careful about who is included in that. I'm about to say something that's probably real controversial, and it just is what it is.
Okay.
At the end of the day, if there's a division, I don't get to choose. So what I'm saying is, if it's a division, okay, like even the Black Lives Matter. Okay, when the stuff like that was happening, it was kind of like, I don't know how to say this without, and we're talking about ways, we're talking about art, we're talking about cultural appropriation.
Yes.
I guess I'm sensitive to this because I'm not included in that. I did a video in the Black Lives Matter movement, in those things, and the like, am I even included? I think sometimes, and I can only speak on my own backlash. Again,
Yeah. You can only speak from your own experience.
You're talking about like cultural appropriation and who can wear what. Again, simplifying.
Yeah.
And the pain behind it. But I think that there's pain inflicted on people that are actually part of your community that aren't seen that way. And so at the end of the day,
I would agree with that 100%.
Black Lives Matter, I'm saying, we're not talking about politics. We're not talking about anything.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, when all this stuff happens,
Yeah.
you can deny it or not deny it. When Trump became president, there was a lot of racial tensions that were upbuilt. And I'm telling you, I was pushed to, you're black. In this scenario, you're black. Whether you are or not. Whether my whole family was over there. You know. So what I'm trying to say is, in that pain and that hurt and everything, don't forget that there's not you.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Don't forget that there's other people included in that. And we can't, as much as we shouldn't be judging and putting in boxes and what is and what isn't.
Yeah.
Don't forget that it still happens like
100%.
The black community does it too.
100%.
And that sounds gross, but do you know what I'm saying? It's
no, because colorism exists in all communities
wearing
of
those
color.
braids, I would bet money I would be called out. People would openly say things to me. They would see me in a way that I understand you. I get it. See, Okoye doesn't see me in the way that I think other people do, which I love about you. But I'm less black.
Yeah.
In black communities.
I get that.
In white communities, though,
you're black.
I'm definitely not white.
Yeah.
Like,
and I definitely understand
that you have. I'm just saying.
Yes.
If we're saying we have a lot of people who are mixed race,
sure,
you have to remember some of these people are in these scenarios where they're being accused of cultural appropriation, or they can't buy a wig because other people don't think it would be naturally their hair state, but it is, and then they have to explain that and defend themselves. I'm just saying, like, as much as we all need to be opening our minds on what beauty is, on what standards we shouldn't be putting that on anybody,
right?
But traditionally, what has happened, understand that can also flow to that. We all need to be opening that up a little bit more. What does it mean to be a black woman in America?
I 100%. I 100% agree with that. I have friends that are of other ethnicities. I cannot talk today. And I'll just say this. No, all races who come in more with melanin, it is not desirable to be darker.
Oh, I don't disagree.
I have Indian friends, Mexican friends. It is not desirable to be darker. Even within the black community, there's a lot of people who don't want to be dark skinned. But I think for me, what I want people to understand is what it is rooted in. Because I don't know if people understand what it is rooted in. The reason why is because Eurocentric standards and statute of beauty, we have been taught for decades, I mean, before I was even born, that this is what beauty is. And so the further you are away from that, the less desirable you are. And it's not just within the greater scheme of things, but we have been taught by colonizing, by slavery, that it is not beautiful. And so we have to, as people of color, do a better job of dismantling that within ourselves. 100%. Absolutely. We have to do a better job of dismantling that and knowing that we were taught this, but this is not what truth is. Just because we were taught that, and you are taught that, whether you even realize it or not, just by the things that you see. Like you said, growing up, you didn't see a lot of biracial people. What was that?
I didn't see a lot of people of color, period.
Yeah, what is that saying to you? What is that teaching you? Unconsciously. It's all happening. And so I hope that what people get from this particular episode is just understanding that all of this is deeply rooted in I'm just gonna say it, colonization and slavery and the status quo basically teaching you and putting up systems and creating things to remind you that if you don't fit in this certain way, if you don't look, and whether that's hair, skin, whatever, right, a whole system. And I definitely agree that we have to, as people of color, and I will say biracial as well, is do a better job of educating ourselves and each other and being accepting of each other, because that is, to me, one of the beautiful things about being a minority is we do come in so many shades and so many hair textures and so much. There's so much there that it is beautiful. It is beautiful. Whether you want to wear your hair kinky, coily, nappy, whatever, it's beautiful. And if you want to wear it straight and blonde, it is. But really understanding, that it is something that has been taught, and it's something that we all have to do a better job of unlearning. Of unlearning.
Well, but I think you made a good point. We, as a society, can't unlearn what we never learned to begin with.
Right.
So, a lot of people say in order to understand what's happening now, you got to go to the beginning.
Yeah.
So I feel like we all need to do a better job of understanding the underlying pains, understanding the systems and the context.
Yes.
And not necessarily taking it on as like we did the thing.
Right.
But it's still our responsibility to understand.
I think dismantling
where
it is our responsibility.
Right. So that you can move forward with a deeper understanding of other people.
Yes.
And traditionally in the United States, we aren't real big on like, let's look at the past so we don't.
No, we do not.
So that we don't do the same thing over and over again.
That's part of our problem. But anyway.
So, maybe encouraging. I mean, this isn't the end of the conversation.
No.
And there obviously is pain on
on both sides. Yeah.
And this is, we're not trying to come to any even sort of conclusion. First of all, we just wanted to give you...
It's bigger than us to even solve.
Well, right, but we wanted to give you the context of the just what seems to be the benign, like, marketing.
Yes.
But why that's even a marketing, and then...
What's behind that?
Saying who can wear what.
Yes.
Again, we just wanted to... I think this is the start of the conversation. I think in future episodes we can expand.
Sure.
But we appreciate you staying. The whole point of this podcast was to talk about wig life, things that have touched our lives. Wigs brought us to the table.
Yeah.
Now let's talk and have the real conversations.
Yeah.
Right? So the common ground is the wigs that can bring us to a place where we can learn and expand and understand and go deeper.
Yeah.
I feel like we should clip that out for like a short.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying for real. So
I
want to invite you all to have these conversations.
Yes.
And and to have the start of the conversation.
Yeah.
And even if it's just listening to something and taking a moment to be like, wait a second, I never thought of it that way.
Sure.
And then taking that thought that step further.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a win.
Yes.
If even you're willing to be like, it's not a right or wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's not a this happened or didn't happen. It's like, hey, I never really brought that into my mind. Let me take that a little bit further and follow that thought process a little bit more.
Yes.
Because you will see how much you expand.
Yeah.
When you just let it come in.
Yes.
Let it sit there. It doesn't have to be right, wrong. You don't even have to do anything with it. Bring these thoughts, bring these ideas that we've shared, bring these truths, these pain, these experiences in, and just let it live for a second.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And that's what I have. That's what we have.
Yeah. Hope to see you in the next episode. That was heavy. That was heavy, man. Yeah. Wow.
We need to have some dinner now.
Right? Man, I'm gonna have a drink.
We're gonna see you. We're gonna see you next Wednesday.
Thank you so much, you guys. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed the episode and you'd like to help support the Wig Life podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating or review wherever you like to listen.
To stay up to date with the Wig Life podcast, visit our website and follow us on socials everywhere at Wig Life Podcast. See you.